Like you've joined Miranda, did you jump straight into doing things?
No,
Like you
we
mentioned Sunday
decided.
school? Or,
I continued on doing Boys Brigade for a little while,
Yeah, okay.
but that became a little bit difficult, not having a car. And so after a while, I stopped doing that. We decided we didn't want to get involved too quickly,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was long before we were involved in Sunday school.
Welcome back, everyone, to Chip Lunch, and we are in part 2 of Pam's podcast. We've still got Braden here, we've still got Pam here, thankfully.
Good start.
Yeah, it's a good way to start. So we left off you just joining Miranda Congregational Church in the last episode, but now I'd love to hear like what transpired in those many years, because you started. That's my first question though. Miranda Congregational Church is not where we are right now. Where you started going, it was up in the corner of what corner?
Urunga Parade and Kiora Road.
And Kiora Road. Okay, so how long were you there until you moved here? Because I don't know when did that timeline happen?
Right. We actually negotiated, and that's a story in itself, and got this property about 1990.
Oh, okay,
so
so
a fair
that far
bit
back.
later.
Okay,
It was about the same time as Ollie Peterson came on board.
okay. He was your pastor.
He was our senior pastor for quite a while.
And so that was a part of Westfield expanding. So you always got something to do with Westfields as well, haven't you? Like even back in the Blacktown days. But Westfield was going to expand across to where MCC was originally, and it was part of the negotiation that didn't Westfield build this church?
Yes. We were very blessed because we had on the leadership team a guy called Ray Leake, who is, his daughter still comes to Miranda Cong. He was very much involved in railway property. I think he was head of railway properties.
Oh, right.
So he was used to negotiating.
Oh, okay.
I sat in meetings with Westfield people, and because I was on the leadership team of MCC
Yeah.
as treasurer, I would not say anything, but I'd be there to support the guys.
Yeah.
And we did very well out of it because of the negotiating skills
Yeah.
Of Ray.
of Ray.
Ray, the master negotiator. That's pretty cool.
He was very clever.
Yeah.
And we did very well out of it.
Oh, good job.
We were keen to move. Miranda Cong was keen to move because we had built a new church out the front. The old one was still there, but it leaked. It had problems.
Okay.
And the hall needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
So we were keen to move. They first offered us a property down one side street, and we said no, thank you. You know, we wanted to get somewhere to be seen,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So you can imagine, in fact, it was Housing Commission houses along the front facing Kiora Road,
Oh, okay.
and they weren't normally sold.
Yeah.
But enough said.
Westfield has some power back in the day, or still does.
Anyway, we agreed to the property, and I don't remember the negotiating for the plans and all that jazz, but it all. I just remember the kitchen design, etc.
Yeah. Oh, we found the plans the other week.
Oh, did
when
you?
We were digging
Yeah.
around.
Underneath here, isn't it?
Underneath here.
I've never been under there
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
You don't need to.
We don't need to.
I'm a bit claustrophobic.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually surprising how much room was in there. You had to crouch down, but yeah, it wasn't too claustrophobic. But
Yeah.
I know most of the guys have been down there either to do something or through curiosity.
Yeah, I think Yeah.
but I'm not that curious to get down there.
Well, Braden was keen to find more. Sound
Yeah, I
equipment.
was finding more. Yeah, it was very fun. I think when the church has been here for a long time, then naturally things just appear.
I know at one stage there was a lot of pews down there, the old
Yeah.
wooden pews. but
Yeah.
Oh no, they weren't in there.
There was some.
No, they've got rid of those now.
Yeah.
There you go. You also just mentioned there before that you're a treasurer of MCC. When did you start doing that, and how long did you do that for? I know we're jumping all over the place a little bit, but I like to pick up on some of the things. that you
Phil
talked
Bevan was the treasurer, and he worked for the bank, a manager of a bank, and he was going to West Wyalong. And so MCC needed a treasurer. As I said, I always worked in finance, and I was prepared to do it. And Boggo didn't think that the treasurer would have to be on the diaconate, but he talked to Ken, who was church treasurer, and the treasurer did have to be a deacon. So it was a case of, okay, Lord, I was prepared to do it, but I can't, so that's that.
Yeah.
Next thing, and in those days, for the diaconate, someone had to nominate you.
Right.
Next thing, Ken comes to me and said, "You've been nominated for the diaconate."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh no." But there'd never been a woman on the diaconate, and I thought we weren't ready at that stage for a woman on the diaconate. So I was quite pleased when there was more standing than required, because I was sure that I wouldn't get in,
Yeah.
because people
Weren't ready, like you
weren't
said.
ready for a woman on the diaconate. But I did.
What year was that?
Oh, gee.
Or
I
circa?
really don't know. It would have been,
What decade do you reckon you can get it in?
would have been 88, 87, 88. I don't know. I'm honestly guessing.
Around then.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
So Phil went to West Wyalong, and at that stage it wasn't computerised. It was all, but it was 89 when I went back to work. I'd always done a bit of work, but I'd never gone to work while the girls were growing up. Boggo wanted me to be at home with the girls. And that stage I'd done the computer studies courses, and, I decided I'd like to go back to work. And at the time, I needed a reference that was up to date, and Les had asked his boss, who was the organist at Caringbah Baptist, because I used to write up some books for them from time to time, and even do a bit of computer work for them at that stage.
Okay.
And he'd asked Bruce to write me a reference, because the reference from my husband isn't worth the paper it's written on. And so Bruce knew I was looking for work.
Yeah.
When one Sunday, a fellow from SIM advertised that they were looking for a financial assistant 2 half days a week.
Okay.
And so Bruce went to this fellow after church with my name and a phone number and said, "This is the woman you want."
Yeah.
So Sunday afternoon I get a phone call. Was I still interested in work?
Yeah.
Anyway, the long and the short is I went Monday for an interview at the SIM office, which at that stage was in Central Road. And because they didn't think they'd get anybody with the qualifications prepared to work 2 half days a week.
Yeah.
But that suited me fine for a start.
Yeah.
But, it really worked.
Yeah.
And God's hand was in it, in that I got involved, obviously, in the finance, and the salary packages and all of that. So when it came, I knew what I was doing for when we got a few ministers here.
Yeah.
right.
I could organise that for them too.
Yeah, had the
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me, God's hand
Yeah.
in everything in my whole life. Even when Les changed jobs, God's hand was in it.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, I'm just trying to fix that microphone. But so we have skipped over that a little bit, and it's cool that you were able to, like, isn't it interesting though how God, you have these experiences and then 10 years later you go like, oh, that's what he was doing. Like,
You look back on it
yeah.
Yeah.
and you think, goodness me,
Oh, there's a plan.
you know, it's incredible.
Mm. So it was really cool there that you mentioned your girls. So I believe you told me you have 2 daughters.
Yes.
Something I always like to ask parents, and this is a good way to go back in time a little bit, because we started in about 64 and then we fast forward all the way to the 80s. But a good portion of that time would have been raising your girls.
Mm.
What has God taught you through being a parent?
Oh my goodness. Just to bring everything before him in prayer. Your parenting skills. Joanne was born in 68 and Shelley was born in, Michelle I should say, was born in 72.
Okay.
They're very different.
Mm.
Joanne's very much like a father, and unfortunately Shelley's like me. When we're noisy and they're quiet.
Oh, right. Okay. That's cool. And you said you stayed at home most of the time when you were raising the girls, as Bogo requested. What sometimes I think it can be really hard raising kids, but also it's really cool. What's it like? What decisions did you make as a parent and as a Christian parent that may have been different? Like, how did that stand out to other parents at the time when the way that you were raising your kids compared to others in terms of being a Christian?
I don't know how to answer that because everything revolved around the church, and at that stage we had girls. We started Girls Club. I was involved, and I used the same lines as the Boys Brigade, games and devotion, and with the girls we did craft and handicraft and things like that. We had a big group of girls at that stage because at that stage, and we had 13 netball teams from Mirandacong.
Okay. So there was a lot more people going to church.
Sunday school would have been 250 or something like that.
Wow.
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 Les was Sunday school superintendent there for a while. In fact, I remember Betty Best, who was the minister's wife, saying to me, you know, we had all these girls involved in netball, and then when netball finished, we didn't see them to next netball season.
Yeah.
And she had the vision of a girls' club or something.
Yeah.
And that's how we got involved in Girls' Club.
Yeah.
And that got so big, we had to then make it juniors and seniors,
Yeah.
2 different groups, because
Yeah.
we couldn't handle all these girls that were coming.
Yeah.
How was it different? Like 250 kids coming to Sunday school is wild.
Well, we had West Miranda. We've got a second manse down in Tulta Avenue.
Okay.
And at that stage, it was a hall, and we
Okay.
called it West Miranda.
Yeah.
And Ken Drake had a Sunday school down there, and we had the one up here.
Yep.
And at one stage, the biggest department was the young people, the teenagers.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, each department was big, obviously, but
Yeah.
it was quite unique. You'd never see anything like it again.
Yeah.
It was. We used to have a Sunday school anniversary, and the planks for the stage are probably down under here. We were talking about before.
Yeah.
Used to put a stage up at the front of the church, and
Yeah.
and kids, we've still got pictures of all these kids and we'd have special songs we'd sing.
And what I'm interested in, I suppose, is that so many people come into church at that time. Obviously, that's not the case now. What did you see as the cause of that kind of dwindling away of people coming to church? Was that just what you did? You went to church at that time? Like everyone went to church? Was that's what people found community
I think it
around?
was more acceptable for you went to church on Sunday morning.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that stage we used to have, at one stage we had an 8 a.m. service, and then the next one, I don't remember what time it was,
Yeah.
and then there was an evening service,
Yeah.
whereas these days you don't have an evening service.
Mm. And what do you think drew people away from the church at that time, or as you stayed at church? What do you think drew people away from church rather than it was just?
I think
not
it was
the thing to do?
the world became more worldly. Is that
Right.
sensible?
Or like less Christian? Do you mean? Is it
Yeah,
like less nominally
yeah.
Christian? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've got to have things to get people involved. The different projects we've done over the years, like 2008, we had the Malawi House project, which
Yeah.
I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that all came about because the Sowers International people,
Yeah.
Selwyn and Christine Sexton, bought a native guy, Godfrey, out, and he spoke at our morning service.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, and as quite often happened, they came to our place for lunch, and
Yeah.
we were all sitting around the table talking
Yeah.
when the question was asked of Godfrey, what's your biggest problem in Malawi?
Yeah.
And he said, finding somewhere to rent.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And straight away I said to Christine, what's a house worth in Malawi?
Yeah.
And we worked it out, and at the first she said 16,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my goodness. The next day happened to be a craft leaders meeting, and at that stage there was 4 of us involved. And I told them about it, and straight away there was interest. I almost felt if I'd asked them 4 4s are 16, we would have, had it underway. Anyway, we talked about it, and anyway, the Malawi House project came into fruition. And we wrote to the church and asked for permission to do it. And everybody got on board. It was the most exciting time you could ever imagine. That over a period of time, what with the exchange rate and the cost, it went up twice.
Right.
And Les had suggested we call it quits by the end of November, because at that stage we used to have Thanksgiving service, which was the first Sunday in December,
Yeah.
where we all, groups and everything, put in more money. Excuse me. And I think the last donation came in on the 3rd of December and we had 27,500.
Wow.
And
That's a lot of
that
money.
was enough to buy the house. But everybody was blessed through it. Like we had a market day and the soccer guys had a barbecue.
Yeah.
And when I got home, there was an email telling me that the soccer guys wanted to give what they'd made to the Malawi House Project.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I sat at the computer and cried. You know, everybody was very involved, and a lot of them still remember the Malawi House Project. And I remember our Andrew Harris, who was a minister at that stage, said it was so good for the church to be so committed to the one project. We had hymn singing afternoons to encourage people to give. Over the years, Les had asked me if I wanted an embroidery machine, to which I always said no, I can't justify the money. And just before all this happened, MBF had payouts for people that had been with them a long time when it became Bupa.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And Boggo and I had both been with them since 1956.
Right.
So we scored this money, and I had said, well, perhaps an embroidery machine.
Yeah.
And that was just before the Malawi House Project. Just after that, we were down with Country Daughter when we came across Canning Vale hand towels, which is a good brand, for $1 each.
Mm-hmm.
I bought hundreds. we sold so many hand towels
Right.
Yeah.
for the Malawi House Project. I'm still making them, and it's now for the Kenya Sewing Project.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Wow.
But God's hand's been in everything right through, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I got distracted. One question I wanted to ask you, and it probably doesn't fit in the timeline at all, but you've been to a number of different kind of denominations in terms of churches. Methodist, you said, Baptist, Congregational, kind of becoming part of Anglican as well now. What do you reckon can you tell us the differences and what your thoughts are on those kind of theological approaches?
The main thing that doesn't differ is that Jesus Christ died for us,
The gospel,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
and we all can have salvation through his death on the cross.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter if you're a Methodist, a Baptist, Anglican.
Yeah.
The difference, of course, Methodists believe in christening, Baptists believe in believers' baptism.
Yep.
I changed from Methodist to Baptist when I was about 16, and I didn't get baptised straight away. I worked my way through. There was a bit of pressure to, now you're a Baptist, you get baptised. And I said, no,
Yeah.
I'll say when I'm ready.
Yeah.
And of course, it had to be a very cold winter's night in August, and the baptistry was not heated.
Yeah.
It was cold.
And you're
Yeah.
like full immersion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas here, we've got heating in the baptistry
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't know you had one here.
Yeah. It's behind. It's the.
at
behind
the front.
behind the
Stage.
drums?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Do you reckon you could no, I was gonna turn that into a jacuzzi. That's what I was gonna say, but that's probably not ideal.
Probably not.
No. So they're the main differences.
Yeah. The common denominator is
Yeah.
Lord Jesus
Yeah.
is our Lord and Saviour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. And obviously that's been the most important thing to you as you've moved around and gone to different churches. Yeah, okay. I've got a question though. It's like, what was it like going back into the workforce? You said you didn't do it. You kind of hinted at or told us about how you started getting back into the workforce. What's it like? I feel like what you've told us before is that work was really important for you. Like you really enjoyed working, whether it was working for your dad or the accounting or even treasurer at the church. What was it like transitioning back into working?
It
for
had
longer?
its funny side. It really did. I stopped work probably 66, 67, when we had manual typewriters.
Yeah.
When I went back, I had electric typewriters.
Oh, right. Okay. I've used an electric typewriter before. I've used an electric typewriter before.
I remember on one occasion when I went back, I worked under an accountant at Sim, and she said to me, I'll go and get the guillotine. It's on the bench, and told me exactly where it was. I went up there, and to me there wasn't anything that looked like a guillotine, so I went back and I said, I'm sorry, it's not there. And she said, right, don't worry about it. And I think I went out to the bathroom. When I came back, there was this thing on my desk. Okay, this is the guillotine. To me, a guillotine, you put the paper in, you brought the
Go
head
down. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it thinking, I don't even know where you put the paper in this. You know, stupid things like that. It was one of those. I've got one at home now where you slide the paper in it and you bring the cut down. But I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
There were funny things like that. But I really enjoyed working at Sim. And as time went on, I started off 2 half days a week.
Yeah.
Then I worked 2 full days a week. And I ended up working, I only ever worked 4 days, but I worked long hours, so that I worked sometimes 40 hours a week, but over 4 days.
Yeah.
Because at one stage my dad had Alzheimer's, so I would take him of a Thursday to give Mum a break,
Yeah.
and we'd go different places and have lunch and everything. I was very close to my dad.
Yeah.
I was always a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
From a very young age, I'd be with Dad in the truck if I was allowed.
Yeah.
I'd go to the timber yards and everything, and the only condition was that I couldn't get out. I had to stay in the truck.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But no, I was a dad's girl from way back. So
I can see that from the stories you've told us. It's nice. The question I was going to ask you just completely exited my head then. Oh, SIM. What does that stand for people that don't know?
serving in mission now.
Right.
But it was a combination of a few missionary organisations. Like at one stage, we actually had a dinner here when SIM and AEF joined forces. And we had a dinner, and I had Craig and Kayleen and my lot with their, I don't know whether they were married at that stage, partners, all in black and white doing the serving. Yeah.
That's cool.
But so SIM changed. One stage was Sudan Interior Mission.
Right.
And then there was Pakistan one joined us too at one stage. But I enjoyed, and I'd get emails from missionaries on the field thanking me for what I was doing in the office. They could stay on the field because of what I was doing in the office. And it was really worthwhile.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must have felt worth
Yeah,
doing it.
I just loved it.
Yeah.
I actually worked until I was 65, which I didn't have to at that stage. I could have retired at 63 or something.
Yeah.
But I wanted to retire while I was still really bright upstairs. I'd hate to have thought I'd get to the stage where I couldn't remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
And you're not there yet.
No, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But back then you didn't know. That's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You didn't know what the future holds. You just know who holds the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've said that so often
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
lately.
Yeah.
Well, how do you keep yourself engaged then? Because as you get older, there are some less things that you can do. But how do you keep that mind active? I'd be really interested to know how you do that.
Well, my sister and I are very keen on Lumosity, which is a brain training
Oh yeah,
thing on the computer.
I think I've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really. We reckon it keeps us bright upstairs. We try and do it every day.
Yeah.
What kind of questions does it ask you?
Well, it depends. There's different games that you've got to join the squares or
Oh, okay. Like puzzles. and stuff
different.
like that.
Yeah, puzzles.
Yeah,
but
cool.
all kinds of different things. Click the birds. You know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think some of my favourites, but yeah, we reckon it keeps you very active in
That's good. Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah, I think it feels like on observation, just from people who are a little bit older than I, that it's important to do things like that to keep yourself occupied and fired up for life.
And I've always been involved in things like craft, the craft group.
Yeah.
I like teaching people beading. When I was looking for new things for craft, our craft group of a Thursday, I went back to TAFE and learnt French beading.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And for a while I taught that, but most people don't get passionate about the things I'm passionate about. I could bead all day. I love doing it. The Christmas balls and all that kind of thing.
Well, that's kind of like you said you wanted to become a carpenter years ago. That's
practical
kind of,
things.
Yeah, it's a kind of similar thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, there's always something, and I've always made things and sold them for different projects.
Yeah.
At one stage when Camp Fletcher was doing wanting money, we had stalls for Camp Fletcher.
Yeah.
As I said, embroidered hand towels. Les always said I'd get to saturation point that people wouldn't buy them anymore, but we haven't got there yet. And I've been doing it since 2008.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's the Kenya Sewing Project. Can I talk about that now?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
For sure.
Back in about 2016, Christine Sexton told me about a woman in Kenya who was from Zambia. She's a Zambian, married to Godfrey, who is one of the head evangelists in Sewers International. They had moved to Kenya to start Sewers in Kenya. And she saw the need of the women that had either been widowed or ditched by their husbands, who had family, kids, and they didn't have any way of making money. And there's no social security or anything like that in Kenya. And so she saw the need, and she knew that I was always involved in making things. So she asked me, would I consider funding the project?
Yeah.
And so it was 2018 when it got off the ground. By the time she talked to Eudenis and Christine talked to me. And that year she trained 2 women. And when they graduated, we gave them a Singer sewing machine, which of course is a treadle one because they don't have electricity.
Yeah.
And it's life-changing because they can then make clothes or curtains or you name it and sell them and feed their kids.
Yeah.
So not only can they feed their kids, they've now got money for school fees, and your mind just deals with the difference it makes in their lives.
Yeah.
And the testimonies we get of these women is just so interesting, and we're blessed so much by it. But fast forward to 2024, she's now training 4 people twice a year, every 6 months. She trains 4 people.
Right.
And of course, not only do we have to buy cottons, material, needles, pencil, notebook.
Yeah.
It's done properly. It's a full budget she sends me each time.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for money. The last 2 Christmases, the church has given us half the Christmas offering. But it's just a very exciting project.
Yeah.
At the moment, the 4 women involved are Matilda, Ruth, Sarah and Zephora. Sometimes their names I can't pronounce, but you get the message.
Yeah.
Of
But
course.
she keeps us up to date with what they're doing, and she sends photos, which we always show at Woman to Woman.
Yeah.
But it's a very exciting project, and I'm passionate about it, in case you didn't get the message.
But that's great. Like, that's what I'm saying about keeping yourself occupied and interested. And what I wanted to ask about, just like the last question on that, is how much do you think your faith helps you stay like keen to be doing things like that? Because I mean, I compare like the story of my grandmother, who really didn't do very much and just sat in a chair and eventually passed away. But I really value when I see people your age really just still got a
passion.
a passion, or just a desire to doing something, or they're excited to be like, life is still there's plenty more to be taken in life, or to enjoy in life. So do you think that your faith is a really important part of that compared to other people that don't have that faith at your age?
Yes, I mean, the reason I do it is for the Lord.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I've been happy to drive the Kenya Sewing Project, but I'm now looking to get people involved so that it will still go.
Succession planning.
Yes, because I'm on the skits, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it, Pam. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, as I often say, I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
I've opted not to have chemotherapy, so I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future,
Yeah.
and it's my Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I won't go a minute before he's got my place ready,
Yeah, exactly.
as people laughingly say from
I
time
like
to time.
that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you mentioned chemotherapy. Do you want to tell us about that? So you've cancer is part of your story as well. So tell us about that.
Sorry, that's an allergy.
Yeah.
Bogo died in 2012 with pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
He did take the operation, and it wasn't a success, and it was dreadful.
Yeah.
2020, I got esophagus cancer,
Wow.
Yeah.
and I opted for the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy. And because I said no to the operation, they gave it to me together. They hit me hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
I ended up in ICU for 6 days when they were told I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
But I did. And I was cancer clear until this year.
Yeah.
And in January, they said I had bowel cancer and another esophagus cancer in a different place. I make that clear because I felt the one in 2020 was cured. The Lord cured it.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got to be clear about that.
Yep.
This year I've had the bowel operation and I've had several cancers removed from the esophagus.
Okay.
It's now back
Mm.
in the bowel and the esophagus, and that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So
But as you said, you've chosen not to do
I've
chemotherapy this time.
chosen not to because the 5 what do you call it, things will happen with chemotherapy, side effects,
Oh,
Okay.
is violent diarrhea, throwing up,
pleasant.
you lose your hands and feet, skin and all that.
Oh,
And I spend my life making things, crocheting and doing things.
yes.
So I've opted not for the chemotherapy. That's the reason. My oncologist is a beautiful woman, and she's said the chemotherapy would be the one that nearly killed me back in 2020. So she's happy to just keep an eye on me at this stage.
Yeah.
And she's been involved with this allergy business because they think that might be something related.
Yeah.
As you said though, God hasn't got your place ready yet. That was really cool. How does that? Again, we're coming back to like asking you about your faith in relation to this stuff with cancer. How does that transform your thinking in terms of the cancer treatment and what you're actually thinking about when you're like, I have cancer?
Well, obviously you pray about it, and I know some of my good friends are praying for me. So you pray about the decisions you make in life. One of the things I missed when Bogo died, every morning we would pray together, every day of our lives type of thing. And even when he left for work at 6 o'clock, he would come and sit on the bed at 1:45.
Which you mentioned when we were talking beforehand, you're not an early riser.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. But I always managed to wake up and pray
Yeah.
with him
Yeah.
when he was, because they worked at Macquarie Park, and that's a long way away.
Yeah.
And so they figured if they went 6 o'clock in the morning, they had a better run through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, they'd be home by 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's beautiful. I know that you've met. I really like the way that you mentioned Bogo. Like, I really, it's obvious, like the love and respect that you have for him. You also just briefly before we were recording said you wanted to chat about like his work, and he worked for 3 Christian organisations. Is that right? That was like the majority of his career, right?
Yeah, it was all his career.
Just
He worked after school in Dalrymple's bookstore in Goulburn Street. And then when he left school, he worked there. And then Mr. Dalrymple, a lot of people know Bill Dalrymple. He's long gone these days, but he started Christian Press, and Les was part of that. He used to go to America for buying trips and things like that.
Well, like you'd have to say, I want this amount of books to come into Australia.
Well, it was more than books. It was plaques and all kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things they used to do was text cards. Do you know what a text card is?
No.
Something,
Text on a card or?
well, basically, but it'd have a picture or something.
Yeah.
And I used to do a lot of piecework when he was at Christian Press. Like I'd tie the cord on the top of the card would have a hole in it, and I'd tie the card on it. The cord on it.
Okay.
Used to do gold stamping on different things. There was just a lot of piecework.
Yeah.
You didn't get paid much money, but every now and again you get a cheque for a few hundred, and that was buy a lounge or something.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. And did you went to America with him a couple of times?
Yeah, that was later when he worked for Christian Multimedia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many times he went, but twice I was fortunate. When the girls were older,
Yeah.
I was prepared to go. And there'd be a week of ICVM. And then,
What's that stand for? International?
International Christian Video Media,
Okay.
Yeah.
something like that. And that was when he worked for Christian Multimedia. That was that week. And it was quite interesting because the conference would be in these posh hotels and you'd be living in it and working in it. And the twice I went, they'd put me in as a delegate so I could do whatever I liked.
Oh,
I could go to the sessions or I could go out and have a walk, you know. And I did. I had a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in America were you?
One conference was in Dallas.
Yeah.
I thought it might be Dallas, yep.
And when it was in Dallas, I said, well, we had to go to a rodeo on the Saturday night. I wasn't going to be in Dallas and not go to the real thing.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. They actually opened in prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at the end, they said, now make sure you go to the church of your choice tomorrow, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second week would be Christian booksellers.
Yeah.
And Les was always interested in books.
Yeah.
We had bookshelves everywhere. Still do.
Yeah.
Although I've passed on a lot of books now. And that was interesting in that the authors would have stands and there'd be a timetable where they'd tell you where they were going to be when. And you could line up and they'd autograph the book for you and give it to you. So needless to say, the years I went, we always had to buy an extra suitcase because the different guys would want, they'd work out what they'd like,
Yeah.
and I was the one that'd go around and get it,
Yeah.
Okay.
which was, it was just all interesting, intriguing to meet these people and get all these different books.
Yeah.
Was Boggo a big reader? Just devoured the books.
Yeah. Are you a big reader?
I read a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a big reader.
Yeah.
But I've always got at least a fiction on the way, as
Yeah.
well as this year I was determined to get through the Bible in a year. We've got
There you
those books.
Yeah.
We've done it before, and I.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have any go-to reading recommendations if someone asked for a book recommendation? Do you have something that you?
well, we
you
just
go to?
had one of our meetings for Woman to Woman was book reviews by some of us.
Yeah.
And I chose a set by Julie Glasson,
Yep.
which I thoroughly enjoyed. They're Christian themed. They're fiction.
Yeah.
Right.
And interesting, I really enjoyed that series, and both my girls are reading them.
Oh. Okay.
So the age I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Joanne works very hard, long hours, doesn't get a lot of reading time, only on holidays type of thing.
Yeah.
But she'll get through them, and Shell's read the lot.
Yeah.
If you go and take one book onto a desert island, which book would it be?
Well, the answer, it's tempting to say the Bible.
Yeah. Let's say the Bible's excluded from this.
But
You get a
I
Bible
would-
too.
I would like to take two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
I don't know. Hopefully I won't go to a desert island. So it won't be an issue.
Yeah.
No bookshelves on a desert island.
I've got plenty to choose from on a
What's a book that's impacted you a lot? Could be fiction or non-fiction.
Oh, gee, that's a hard one.
Sorry.
No, I would really like to think about that one.
Okay. Well, you let us know, and I'll put it on the next podcast for everyone to see. So we've looked over so much of your life, and we've probably barely scratched the surface. But I'd like to ask you the last question: is looking over your life. You're a Christian now. What would you like to tell your younger Christian self? What would you tell them if you could go back in time?
Well, you know what comes to mind? Trust in the Lord with all your might and lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah.
In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths.
Where's that from in the Bible?
Proverbs 3, 4 and 5? 5 and 6.
5 and
I don't know,
6,
something
yeah.
like that.
Did you just say?
I think it's 5 and 6.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, when you trust in the Lord, he
Yeah.
guides you.
Yeah.
You know, okay, I look back on my life and I've had a wonderful life. Okay, there's been hurts. There's been things that haven't gone to plan. But God's always been there. He's faithful. He doesn't let you down.
Yeah.
People might let you down, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't say the Christian life is an easy life.
No, exactly.
Does it?
No.
But it says it's going to be a joyful one, I think, if you trust in the Lord. And there's a lot to come from your life if you do that. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
That, once again, that would be the quote I gave would be King James, because it would say something more softer these days, but the principle's still there.
Yeah,
Was that one of the Sunday school ones that are just in there?
I don't
you
know.
don't know.
It
Yeah.
was one of, I think it'd be true to say it was one of Boggo's favourites.
Yeah.
That when we trust in the Lord with all our might, just don't lean on your own,
Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good time to wrap up recording, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I know that you're a little bit unsure about coming on, and I hope that you've really enjoyed it, because I have. And I think it's been really special to have. I actually really love it when we get some older saints on the podcast, because if you don't know, or you would know, but it's Soul Revival, it's really important to us that we are intergenerational and that we learn from the older saints who have so much more biblical wisdom than us. And I think that's happened today, which has been really, really special. And I was thinking of try and think of titles of what the podcast is, and I'm not sure if we'll put this in, but something that I really get from you is your bullishness, but in a way of, it's in a lovely way of being, because you're a Christian.
My what?
Bullishness, very, very steadfast. And that's what I think I've gathered
Very
from this.
blunt.
Yeah, I wouldn't say blunt, because that would mean that you're rude, I think. And I don't think I think you're very steadfast in how you live your life as a Christian. That's what I mean. And I was just thinking of that. The reason is because you said so many times, like, it's in God's hands, or the future is in God's hands. And even the trials, you're even talking about the trials that you're having with cancer right now, is that you're still trusting in God. And I think it's really important for the younger crew, or even just people who are in their 50s, to hear from you to say that, because I think it's really, really important.
Well, I am very blessed not only to have the Lord, I've got wonderful daughters, very supportive. They ring me every day.
Lovely.
My sister and I talk every day. As you've gathered, I can always talk. In fact, one of the guys at Sim used to say I could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles.
Yeah.
That's mixing two metaphors, isn't it? Two sayings.
But, I don't have trouble talking.
Yeah. No, it's been great. But I just think, like, even when you're a young girl, you're like, I want to be a carpenter. And I know that didn't happen for you. Be like, well, I'm going to find another way. And then you're like, I'm going to be the treasurer of the church. Oh, but it's not going to happen. Oh, they're not ready for. Oh, I don't care. I'm ready to go anyway, if that's what God's planning to do. So I really valued that and learning from you today. So thank you very much. I'm going to leave. If Brady, have you got anything to add?
It's just always lovely having someone on that you don't know as well, and having like some intentional time to just chat about you and your life. And it's been lovely to get to know you this morning.
I think sometimes we're mischief looking for somewhere to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to say that about my second daughter. She was mischief, looking for somewhere to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm in that category too, I think, which makes life interesting.
Yeah.
There's never a dull moment with me around.
Yeah.
I have on occasion said to Bogo, I don't know how you put up with me. And he'd just look at me with loving eyes and say, I manage, don't change.
Oh, don't change. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really lovely.
It's lovely.
I think the other thing, just finally, is your positivity. So I really appreciate that. And I think that comes from your extremely strong faith. So thank you for that. And
Thank you for having me.
No, it's right. Like you said, that with different projects we're blessed. We've been really blessed to have you on today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And what we say is we like to wrap up the chips, finish up the podcast. And thank you for everyone listening. Thank you to Braden, of
Thank
course.
you to
Thank
Joel.
you especially
Thank
to
you,
Pam being on the podcast, and for Hudson behind the screens, behind the desk. That's better. Behind the desk. Thank you, Hudson, and thank you to everyone listening and watching. And Pam, we finish every podcast with a one way. If you don't know what that is, that's a Larry Norman thing.
Yeah,
he said he was getting accolades from people clapping him. He said, "Don't clap me, clap Jesus." And he says one way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if we went to one of his concerts once.
Wow, you need to talk to Stu about that.
He'd be very jealous.
He'd be very jealous.
I was looking for the record. I know we had a record,
Oh
but
wow!
I haven't found it yet, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's there.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, let us know how you go, and we'll update the audience when you find it.
Yeah.
Especially also on your book choice.
Yes.
But we're gonna wrap it up. Finish with a one way, and thank you very much.
Thank you. One way.
One way.